Amir drove through the city as he did every night, his car a small island of warmth against the damp autumn air. The dashboard camera blinked its red light, recording everything, though he rarely thought about it. He was a rideshare driver, a profession that made him invisible, a ghost in the machine of the metropolis. That night, he picked up a passenger from a high-rise office building. The man was in his 50s, wearing an expensive overcoat, and introduced himself only as Mr. Elias. He sat in the back, tense, his hands gripping a leather briefcase. During the ride, Elias took a call. His voice dropped to a whisper, but Amir caught fragments. "I can't do this anymore. The files are ready, they know." When the call ended, Elias asked to be dropped at an abandoned industrial zone near the river. He promised he would return in 10 minutes. Amir waited, engine idling, watching the rearview mirror. 10 minutes became 30. The industrial zone was silent, the only movement a stray dog crossing under a flickering streetlight. Amir called out once, then again. No response. Mr. Elias never came back. Amir drove home feeling uneasy, convincing himself the man had simply walked away. But the unease did not fade. It clung to him like the city's persistent fog, and the red light of the dashcam seemed to pulse with a silent accusation he could not ignore. The next morning, Amir reported the strange disappearance to the police. A tired detective named Hayes took the report with little enthusiasm. No body, no crime scene, just a missing man who had voluntarily gotten out of a car. Hayes told Amir that adults were allowed to vanish if they wished, and that without evidence of foul play, there was nothing to investigate. Frustrated, Amir decided to check his dashcam footage, hoping the camera had captured something useful. He plugged the memory card into his laptop and scrolled through the night's recordings. The moment Elias stepped out of the car was there, but what followed was a digital void. The loop had overwritten the crucial minutes. All that remained was a 12-second fragment, grainy, low-light footage showing Elias being guided by two large men into a dark van. His face was calm, but his posture betrayed fear, his shoulders slightly hunched, his steps reluctant. Amir watched it again and again, each time noticing new details: the way one of the men held Elias's elbow, the van's missing license plate. His stomach tightened. He was no longer a witness. He was the only person who had seen what happened, and now the only evidence was a fragment too short to satisfy anyone. He returned to Detective Hayes with the fragment, but the detective dismissed it as inconclusive. The men's faces were obscured, the van had no plates visible, and there was no proof of a crime. Hayes advised Amir to stay out of it, warning that involving himself could be dangerous. But Amir could not shake the image of Elias's resigned expression. He began his own investigation, starting with the GPS log from his rideshare app. The route that night was recorded, from the law firm to the industrial zone. He searched the address where Elias had been taken and found it belonged to a defunct warehouse owned by a shell company called Crest Holdings. With no other leads, he looked up Elias online. The lawyer was a senior partner at a prestigious corporate firm, known for handling high-value real estate deals. 3 days after the disappearance, a local news outlet ran a brief story: prominent attorney missing, police cite personal reasons. Amir knew it was a lie, but he also knew he was alone. He began spending his nights cross-referencing property records, learning how shell companies could hide ownership. The deeper he dug, the more he realized he was entering a world he did not understand. He decided to return to the industrial zone in daylight, this time better prepared. The warehouse was a crumbling concrete shell, its windows boarded up, surrounded by rusted fences. A faded sign read Crest Holdings, Property Management. Amir parked a block away and approached on foot. The gate was secured with a new padlock, incongruous with the decay. He found a gap in the fence and slipped through, his footsteps echoing in the empty lot. Inside, the warehouse was empty except for tire tracks in the dust, recent ones, suggesting multiple vehicles. Near the loading dock, he discovered a discarded business card for a private security firm called Archer Shield Services. He pocketed it. As he turned to leave, a black SUV pulled up outside the gate. Two men in dark suits stepped out, scanning the area. Amir crouched behind a pile of pallets, his heart pounding. They circled the perimeter, spoke into radios, then drove away. He waited 10 minutes before escaping, his hands shaking. He knew then that Elias had not simply vanished. Someone was watching the warehouse, waiting. Back home, Amir searched for Archer Shield Services. The company had no public website, only a registration address in a commercial district. He also searched for Crest Holdings and found a web of shell companies linked to a major real estate developer named Vantage Group. Vantage had recently secured city contracts for a massive waterfront project, contracts that had been awarded amid accusations of favoritism. Amir's mind raced. If Elias had been gathering evidence of corruption, his disappearance might be connected. The problem was that Amir had no proof, only suspicions. That evening, he returned to his apartment to find the lock on his door scratched, as if someone had tried to pick it. Inside, nothing was missing, but his laptop had been moved from the desk to the kitchen table. A subtle violation. A chill ran down his spine. They knew he had the footage. They knew who he was. He packed a bag with clothes, his charger, and the memory card, then left that night, sleeping in his car in a crowded parking garage. He needed help. He remembered a name from an old news article about digital forensics, a woman named Dr. Sana Mehta, a data recovery specialist who had worked with law enforcement before retiring. He found her small office in a quiet part of the city, a cramped space filled with computers and cables. Sana was skeptical at first, wary of strangers bringing mysterious storage devices. But when she saw the 12-second fragment and heard Amir's story, her expression changed. She explained that even overwritten data sometimes left traces, metadata, partial remnants, electromagnetic ghosts. She agreed to try, but warned it would take time and specialized equipment. Amir gave her the memory card and returned to his car. 2 days later, Sana called him with a mixture of excitement and fear. She had recovered more than just metadata. Buried in the digital noise was a partial file, a document that Elias had apparently been recording on his phone at the exact moment he was taken. The recovered fragment was a list of names, dates, and dollar amounts. Beside each name was a reference to the waterfront project. Amir recognized one of the names, a city official who had publicly supported Vantage Group. Another name belonged to a retired police captain now working for Archer Shield. A third name was a bank executive whose institution had financed the project. Sana warned Amir that what he held was evidence of a conspiracy involving bribery, money laundering, and possibly worse. She urged him to go to the federal authorities, not the local police. But before he could act, his car was vandalized overnight, windows smashed, tires slashed, the interior ransacked. A note was left under the windshield wiper, written on a plain card, "Stop looking or you will end up like Elias." Amir took a photo of the note, then drove to a federal building on the other side of the city. This time, he did not leave without speaking to someone. He demanded to see an agent, refusing to be dismissed again. A federal investigator named Agent Morrison listened to Amir's story with growing interest. Morrison was a patient man, middle-aged with tired eyes that had seen too many conspiracies that turned out to be paranoia. But when Amir showed him the recovered fragment, the list of names, and the photo of the threatening note, Morrison's demeanor changed. He had heard rumors about Vantage Group but had never been able to build a case. He asked Amir to hand over everything: the memory card, the business card, the GPS logs. Amir hesitated, fearing the evidence would disappear into a bureaucratic void. Morrison assured him that federal protocols were different. He also warned Amir that his life was now in danger and offered protective custody. Amir refused. He could not abandon his job, his only source of income. Morrison gave him a burner phone instead, with a direct line. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Amir continued driving at night, but he avoided the industrial zone and constantly checked his mirrors. Agent Morrison called occasionally with updates. The federal team was building a case, quietly interviewing witnesses, following money trails. Then Sanaa called Amir in a panic. Someone had broken into her office overnight. Computers were stolen, hard drives wiped, files scattered. The only thing untouched was a backup drive she had hidden in a false ceiling panel, the one containing the recovered data from Amir's memory card. Sanaa told him she was leaving the city immediately. She begged him to be careful. Hours later, Amir received a text from an unknown number. It contained a photo of his apartment door, taken from inside his own building. The message read, "We know where you sleep." He did not go home. He drove to a motel across town and paid cash. Agent Morrison called the next morning with urgency in his voice. The federal investigation had accelerated because another witness had come forward, a former accountant from Vantage Group who had worked directly with Elias. The accountant had fled the city months ago but had been watching the news. When he saw the brief article about Elias's disappearance, he decided to contact the authorities. He was now in federal protection, and his testimony corroborated the list Amir had found. Morrison told Amir that arrests were imminent, but the operation was delicate. He asked Amir to stay hidden and not to contact anyone. Amir agreed, but the waiting was unbearable. He spent days in the motel room, curtains drawn, watching the parking lot. Every sound made him jump. He thought about Elias, about the look of resigned fear on his face, and wondered if he would ever see justice served. The arrests came on a Thursday morning. Federal agents simultaneously raided the headquarters of Vantage Group, the offices of Archer's Shield Services, and the homes of the city official and the retired police captain. Agent Morrison called Amir with the news. 7 individuals were in custody, and evidence seized included encrypted hard drives, financial records, and a cache of documents that Elias had hidden in a storage unit before his disappearance. But Elias himself was still missing. Morrison told Amir that the van seen on the dashcam had been traced to a property owned by Archer's Shield. A search of that property revealed signs of a prolonged detention: a basement room with restraints, a chair bolted to the floor, food wrappers, a mattress. But no sign of Elias. He had been moved days before the raid. The investigation continued for another month. Amir returned to his apartment, though he never felt safe there. He replaced his locks, bought a new dashcam, and tried to resume his normal life. But the memory of Elias haunted him. Then one evening, Agent Morrison appeared at his door unannounced. He carried a folder and an expression Amir could not read. Morrison explained that one of the arrested men had made a deal. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he revealed the location where Elias had been taken after the basement. It was an old storage facility outside the city, owned by a subsidiary of Vantage. Federal teams had searched it and found a locked office. Inside, they discovered a hard drive containing the complete files Elias had been compiling, years of evidence detailing the corruption scheme. But Elias was not there. He had been released weeks earlier, after the men realized the investigation was closing in. 3 days later, Amir received a letter with no return address. Inside was a single page of handwritten text. It began, "To the driver who waited. You did not know me, but you stayed when you could have left. That act gave me time to send the files to a safe location before they found me." The letter went on to explain that Elias had escaped his captors during a transfer, using a forged document he had hidden in his clothing. He had fled the country and was living under an assumed name. He wrote that the evidence he had gathered was now in federal hands, and justice would be served. He thanked Amir for being the one person who did not look away. Amir folded the letter and placed it in his glove compartment, next to the memory card. He started his engine and drove into the night, the dashcam's red light blinking steadily, recording nothing out of the ordinary. The case was closed, but Amir knew that sometimes, the smallest actions, waiting 10 minutes, asking a question, could change everything.